Please welcome Christian Pearson to the stage.
Music is a world within itself in a language we all understand. Stevie Wonder wrote those lyrics to Sir Duke. It's on his album, Songs in the Key of Life. My name's Christian Pearson, and today I'm going to talk to you about building live music culture. I'm going to tell you how music affects an individual, how it affects a community, how it affects a nation, and I'm going to convince you that music is the most powerful force on the planet. Are y'all ready for me to do that? I know, it's happy hour, guys, so act like it's like 5:30. Yeah. I know you've heard a lot today. This is going to be exciting. So I have a question for you. Show of hands. Who has a song that takes them to a place, that allows them to time travel or go to a different chapter in your life, different relationships or a feeling? Raise your hand if you have a song like that. Cool. Raise your hand if something I just played took you to a different time. How magical is it that even though we don't know each other, we just traveled through time together? The reason we're able to do that is because of a thing that musicians call musical vocabulary. See, music is a high-definition language, and this vocabulary allows us to communicate literal ideas, through lyrics, but also emotions and even very vivid memories. And everybody has their own journey with music. For me, at an early age, my mother would sing me lullabies. She had a lullaby she made for me. She doesn't consider herself a musician, but she made up a lullaby, sang it to me every night, and she would probably be terrified to sing on this stage in front of you, but I'm telling you, that was the most beautiful voice I've ever heard. My father was a musician, huge influence on me, and his rock band, all those concerts I went to. Now, when I hear like Billy Joel and the Beatles and Tom Petty, it means a lot more to me than just the song. In high school, my friends and I, we danced to hip-hop music in the parking lot of Santa Fe High School until like 1 a.m. We would just dance together to those songs. And in college, I met new friends and made new memories with new music. And I fell in and out of love to great songs. And I flash back to those lessons that I learned now that I hear those. And I know other people do it too because I'm a piano man. And when I play that right song and I get that guy coming up to me, they sit down next to me and they say, man, this song reminds me of my first marriage, and a lot's changed since then, but man, thank you for this. Sometimes they don't even know how to express it with words, but music says all that you need to say. And, that's us in the piano bar. You're probably going to expect me in this speech to say something about how we have to invest in music education, music make kids smarter and all that, like kids who do classical music or play drums are better at math. And I think all that is very true, but it's sort of trivial compared to what I'm actually trying to tell y'all today. You see, music does incredible things for communities. People share musical vocabulary together. Dave Grohl of the Foo Fighters once said, "You can sing a song to 85,000 people, and they will sing it back to you for 85,000 different reasons." Because we share that musical vocabulary. I actually have a really beautiful story about this. So a friend of mine named John, his grandfather was an amazing Southern Baptist preacher from Alabama, had a long career leading a church, getting up there and delivering powerful sermons, but late in his life, he was affected by Alzheimer's and dementia. And music, gospel music in particular, was always really important to him and important to his family. They shared that together. It became extremely important to them later in his life as he began to not be able to remember his children's names, as he began to not be able to feed himself every day. Well, they would bring a gospel group into his church. And this man, in the morning, before he went to church, he could not feed himself. They would play that music, and he would come up after that, and he traveled through time. He was no longer sick for that moment, and he could pray over his entire church, just like he did when he was in his prime. He could name all of his kids and pray for them by name. It's almost like the part of his brain that held that musical vocabulary, like the dementia and the Alzheimer's, couldn't get to it. How special for his family. Well, it gets even better because shortly before he passed away, John's mother, his daughter, sent him a CD with a lot of his favorite gospel music. And she sent it to him, and shortly after he passed, and at the funeral, they played a video of one of his sermons from when he was younger, and the background music was that first song from the CD, and she was moved by that. She came up to her father's best friend who put the video together. She says, "Thank you so much for doing that. I don't even know how you got that video together so fast. I just sent that CD a couple days ago, but thank you for including that first track from the CD I made. Thank you." And he said, "What CD are you talking about?" It's not just about our own experience with music. We know each other through musical vocabulary. In a great music city, there's a thing called the music scene, and it is related to but different from the music industry. The music scene is a place where people are bumping elbows, they're meeting new people, they're spending time together, they're dancing together, they're falling in love, they're making friends, they're striking up business deals, they're building new memories, they're building new musical vocabulary together. People are growing and connecting in the most human way. This photo behind me was taken 2 months ago at a park in Oklahoma City called Myriad Gardens. And this event was a Woodstock tribute. There were over a dozen musicians on stage with different musical backgrounds. And it was, for a lot of them, it was the first time to share a stage together. The audience was filled with people that normally wouldn't be around each other. There was old folk, young folk, black folk, white folk, red, yellow, green, purple, all kinds of people. Some of those people were smoking medical cannabis, if you can believe it. Some of those people were drinking some beers. A lot of those people were totally sober. It really didn't matter. They were just all in there together, enjoying that experience. And it was so beautiful. By the end of the night, nobody wanted to leave. So that was the 50th anniversary of Woodstock, but the original Woodstock Music Festival in 1969, it rattled the nation. It changed the world. I mean, it was like the pinnacle of this movement where you had hippies, and you had Jesus freaks, and civil rights movement, Make Love Not War, and Marvin Gaye. There was a lot of awesome stuff. And this is the crazy thing about it. I'll bet y'all money that every single person sitting in here right now remembers more songs and bands and artists from the 60s and 70s than you do laws, bills, politicians. Am I right? Yeah. That's because artists have always been and always will be far more powerful than governments, than leaders, than presidents, legislators, kings, you name it. In America now, I think that a lot of people are scared of some things that are happening. We're concerned about things like mental health, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia. We're concerned about things like education. We're concerned about things like race reconciliation and racism, bigotry. Like, that's something that I think everybody is concerned about. And we look to our government and our leaders to fix that. And I think that our government should definitely be involved, but I'm just concerned that I'm not sure our government is going to fix those things for us. But I'm not worried, relatively speaking, because music will, because it's done bigger things for America in the past. If it's okay, I want to go just a little bit deeper with y'all, and I'll do my best to say this right. But there was a time in our nation where people were, like, a lot of Americans were enslaved. There were people just like you and me that wanted to raise families and have careers and have a home that they could call their own. That was probably as ambitious as a reasonable thing. If they were to go try to leave the plantation to go do that, they would have been dragged back to the field and they would have been tortured. And that is hard to think about because it's so heavy. But here's the deal. When I think about that, I'm like, okay, how do you deal with that kind of trauma as an individual? How is that even possible? And I think there's a lot of things that got people through, but I know that the blues was a huge part of that. The blues is this place where there's tons of musical vocabulary, there's tons of meaning and emotional and encouragement, but listen, it wasn't just feeling good, it wasn't just being encouraged, it wasn't just expressing that you were oppressed or in sorrow, it was, they had spirituals like Wade in the Water, which you might hear nowadays. That's an old song, and you might think it's about baptism. It's not. That was people communicating like, hey, if you're going to try to break away and run to the north, like, here's how to not get caught by the hounds chasing your sin. This is people trying to help each other out. They were not allowed to have any formal education. They used music to do that. That's incredible. And that music, the blues, didn't stop when slavery ended. Actually, it kicked it into high gear. And blues became the foundation, the great-grandfather of all the music we hear. Rock and roll, R&B, hip-hop, country music, gospel music, all has roots in the blues. Everything that I just heard that you might have connected with, musical vocabulary in that music comes from the blues. And it's always brought people together. It's always got people learning more about themselves. And after slavery ended in 1865, Jim Crow continued until 1965 when it finally ended with the Civil Rights Movement. And I'm not saying that at that point our problems with race relations were over. In fact, I'm definitely not saying that. We still have those issues. But what I am saying is that Jim Crow never stood a chance against the blues. Nowadays, the blues, everyone enjoys it, and the music that came from it, like all music that we listen to. And I just want to say one thing that Miles Davis said about the blues. He said it with music. And if you don't know who Miles Davis, I assume you all know who Miles Davis is. If you don't, please get hip to him. But he wrote a song called All Blues. And what all blues, as I understand it, what it's about is he says, yeah, the blues came from this place of extreme oppression and extreme sorrow, and it expressed that effectively, but it was about so much more. You can be sad with the blues, you can be jubilant and excited and joyful, you can be indifferent with the blues. Like, you can express anything, it's all fair game. And that's what his song, All Blues, was about. I think that's important to all of us as Americans because that came from here, and it's such a big part of our families, our culture, our nation. Music, the word music, it comes from the Greek, and in Greek it means the art of the muses, which are kind of like demigod things that inspired people. I think a good modern translation of that is music is this magical thing that inspires thought. It's a thought-inspiring art form. So when you leave here today, I hope that you hear the musical vocabulary of the blues in the songs that you already love. I hope that your thoughts are inspired, and I hope to see you in your local music scene. Thank you. Y'all can clap along if you want to.